Hello Year 3 and welcome to Lesson 2 of reading this week, and we're really getting to the end now. It's the day of the contest, Chapter 8, and our learning objective will be to summarise events during the main part of the story. So take a moment just to pause the video, write the date down and the learning objective and underline them, and then we'll be ready to start the Robin Hood recap. And we'll have a look at that recap in 3, 2, 1... Okay, 3 questions then. So who were the crowd cheering for and why? What happened when the burly merchant came over to Robin Hood? We know that burly means he's big. Yeah. And finally, what is a Fletcher? Pause the video now, have a go at those questions just very quickly, and then we'll check the answers together. We'll have a look at them in 3, 2, 1. So the crowd were cheering for Robin Hood and Dickon of Trent because they were using those Saxon longbows and they preferred a Saxon to win than a Norman soldier. The burly merchant recognised Robin Hood because Robin had helped him before, so he warned Robin of Gisborne's plan to capture him, with 20 mounted men, remember. And finally, a Fletcher is a person who makes and sells arrows. Well done if you got any of those. Let's have a look at today's vocabulary. Our first word is commanded. And to be commanded, well, no. If you have commanded something, then you have given an order for it to be done. So I command you to do this. Yeah? The next one is sportingly. So if you act sportingly, or if you're sporting, then that shows that you play fairly and generously in a competition. You don't cheat in any way, you act in a sporting way that's fair. Turf, that means grass. That's another word for it. Gazed. So if you gaze at something, you look at it for a while, kind of in surprise, but also kind of trying to work out what it means, and if you've seen them before, you're gazing, yeah, in interest. Admiration. So if you look at someone with admiration, it's with respect and approval that they are to be admired. And finally, seized. So if you seize something, it's to hold or take with force as well. Yep. Very good. Now what are we going to do with those words? We are going to write sentences. See if you can write sentences for at least 3 of those words. If you can do any more, then great. But pause the video now and give that a try. And we will move on to my example in 3, 2, 1. The archers gazed at the tall Saxon stranger who sportingly won the silver arrow. Fantastic. So there are 2 different words there. I used gazed and sportingly. I wonder what you got. Maybe you got a better one, or one that used actually 3 of the words instead of just 2 as well. Okay, let's have a look at the situation in today's reading. A burly merchant walked out from the crowd. He put an arm around Robin's shoulders and said loudly, "You are a fine bowman, friend, for all your rough appearance." Robin looked up from under his hood and recognised the man as one that he had once helped. The merchant looked keenly at the outlaw and then spoke again in a quiet and urgent whisper. "If you are the one I think you are, be careful. Gisborne is just inside the town gate with 20 mounted men, ready to cut off your escape when you make for Sherwood across the open land." Robin nodded his thanks, and the man stepped back into the crowd, saying loudly again for all to hear, "Brush the hair from your eyes, beggar man, and shoot straight. You are a Saxon, remember?" The marshals finished their discussions and announced the next target. There were shouts and cries of amazement from the crowd when they heard that a stick was to be placed 50 yards away. To make the task even more difficult, the bowmen were to stand with their backs to the target, turn when commanded, and shoot before the count of 3. Such a shot left almost no time for careful aiming, and needed the hand and eye of a true master bowman. "Are you happy about this test of your skill?" the chief marshal asked each of the 4 men in turn. "If I hit the mark, it will be more by luck than any skill of mine," said the honest Saxon, Dickon of Trent, "but I will try." "It's an impossible shot, but so be it," snarled Gisborne's man, Tyrrell. Captain Hugo and the tall beggar looked at each other, then nodded their agreement. Straws were drawn to decide the order of shooting. The crowd grew quiet as Dickon stood first with his back to the target. "Turn! 1, 2, 3, called the marshal. Dickon shot, and the crowd let out a great shout, as if they themselves could encourage the arrow itself to its mark. The shout turned to a groan. As the arrow buried itself in the turf, a hand span from the stick. "It was a good shot," said Hugo, sportingly, as he took his place. The roar that followed his arrow rose to a shout of wonder as the shaft thumped into the ground at the base of the mark. Tyrrell missed by a full yard, and as the tall, untidy figure of the last contestant stepped to the line, the crowd were already acclaiming Hugo the winner. No one thought that the Norman captain's shot could be bettered. Their shouts turned to cries of absolute amazement as Robin turned and shot without even waiting for the count of 3. "A split!" they cried. "He has split the stick! The beggar wins!" "As I said it would be, a lucky shot," snarled Tyrrell. Dickon ran to Robin and seized his hand. "No, a master's shot!" he cried. Hugo too shook Robin's hand, but gazed at him as he did so. "It was one or the other," he said. "Could you do it a second time and prove which?" Robin met the other's gaze and remembered their last meeting. Then without a word, he took another arrow and turned his back to the wand. Again, he shot instantly without waiting for the count to aim. "He has split his first arrow," a voice called in amazement, and a huge roar of approval rose from the crowd. "My question stands answered," said Hugo, looking at Robin with admiration in his eyes. "Now, Master Bowman, you..." So he's won the archery contest. Look, there's a picture. All of them there, looking at him in surprise. Some of them, and there is the hooded man who has won the competition. All of the arrows in the stick. Okay, brilliant. I wonder what's going to happen next. Well, before we find out, it's question time about what we've read already so far. So let me just read through the questions. Number 1. How did the archer's view of the beggar change from the beginning to the end of the contest? What did they think of him at the beginning compared to what they thought of him at the end? Explain that. Number 2. How does the author show that Hugo might be suspicious? Number 3. What does sportingly mean? And number 4. Who was Tyrrell shooting for and who employed him? We've got 4 different types of questions there. We've got a compare, an explore, a define, and a retrieve. And these are our main questions. So pause the video now and have a go at these. And then once you're ready, you can check your answers with mine. And we'll check them in 3, 2, 1. Well, the archers called him a beggar and did not respect him because he was untidy, and they thought he kept getting lucky at the beginning. But by the end, they gazed at him in admiration as he kept hitting the target and went on to win the contest. Hugo gazed at Robin, which showed that he was suspicious. He was the Norman captain, Hugo, who shot against Robin when he was disguised as the potter. So he was gazing and paused, probably because he was wondering if it was actually Robin in disguise. And of course it was. And to be sporting means to be fair and generous in competition. Finally, Tyrrell was a Norman, and the author tells us he was Gisborne's man, which means that he works for him. He's employed by Gisborne. Very good. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. So what I want you to do here are the events, here are the sequence of events that happened during the archery contest. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So your job is to produce a storyboard where you have 6 different pictures with a sentence under each, and all of your sentences are here. They're all in order, so all you need to do is put those sentences into your storyboard and then draw a picture for each one. So pause the video now, and then the words are there for you on the screen. Okay, we'll move on to the final slide in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so next time we'll continue our adventure. Now, I've already asked you to do that final task, which was quite a long one with a storyboard. You can do it as a storyboard, or if you want something extra, you can even write it as a paragraph in your books too. But if you have a storyboard, that's fine. The reading gems that we've covered today: compare, retrieve, explore, define, and summarize. You've done fantastically well. So much work. And now that Robin Hood has won the contest, let's find out what happens to him tomorrow.